Hello and welcome to the North Bank podcast where, not as ever, because we're still missing Holly. It's me and Stef again, producer Chris and home and away Stef. Hello, Stef.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
And we were both home yesterday, weren't we? Even though I missed you.
As ever. I text you saying I'm outside block 6 and you're like, well, I'm only just dropping the kids off.
Yes.
This is about 45 minutes before kickoff?
It was 2:15 and I was, in theory, 10 minutes from the tube where I park up to come into the ground. And there were so many roadworks, and this is a common gripe, you know, if you live in a city where there's roadworks everywhere, but on a weekend, no one's working on them. Oh. So it's just the bollards or whatever you call them, you know, that you're thinned out into one lane, or there's those temporary traffic lights and you're there for ages and there's not a high vis in sight.
I see it up and down the country, just going to away games. It's annoying.
You know, waving fist at clouds moment. But the clouds soon parted because we won a game of football.
Well, hey.
And Holly wasn't far off with his 4-1 prediction.
3 goals.
There you go. So well done, Holly. You kind of got the margin right anyway. So let's have a takeaway first, I think, a summary.
Well, my overall thing was that was the performance we were hoping for with a team we absolutely didn't expect.
Yeah.
So just generally, I found it now, you know, almost 24 hours away from it. It's quite cleansing. It felt that actually, you know, no one really knew how we'd come back after the break. Trossard limped off for Belgium. Havertz played. Talk about Rice and Saka injuries and everything like that. And it was like, is it going to be that refreshing break that we think it was? But actually, we were at it, and it was a very, very pleasing performance.
Yeah, I agree obviously with that. The main takeaway for me was Ødegaard and how we missed him and how he's the kind of glue, really, and the way that we did shake things up with the team. We'll come to that in a sec. But without him, I don't think it gels as well. You know, he really brings everyone into the game and just stitches everything together. And it just made me, I think I sent everyone a text after saying we need to clone him because there is no plan B really that works, you know, in the way that we play with him, because he's so pivotal. He is our most important player. I never say best because I feel like best is kind of dependent on many other factors. You could argue Saka is our best in the front line, but he's not a better goalkeeper than Raya. So,
well, we don't know. Saka's done pretty well everywhere else. He could do a job.
But you know what I mean? There's a sort of generalisation where, you know, he's our best player. Well, you know, yeah. Saliba's our best defender maybe, but I just think in terms of the overall macro look, Ødegaard is our most important player.
To put that in a context of another team, I would probably argue that De Bruyne is City's best player, but Rodri is clearly their most important.
Yeah.
And look how their results are shaping up without him. There's a lot of humbling going on of Man City.
Much humbling, and Erling Haaland must be full of humble pie. He's sick of the sight of it. Mrs. Haaland comes along and says, I've got some more pie for you, Erling, of the humble variety. And he's, no, can't do a Norwegian accent. But anyway, the team news was a bit of a shocker. You were trying to sort of assuage our fears a bit by saying it's only 3 changes.
Yeah.
But still, we weren't expecting that, were we?
I think a lot of the, let's say, negative reaction around the team selection was just because we haven't had that kind of change. You know, there were some things that would be predictable. You know, it was quite a surprise, I think, of all of them, was probably Havertz and Partey. Because Rice carrying an injury, you know, it was a touch and go, and there were leaks sort of coming out in the press earlier in the day that he was probably going to be unavailable, although he sat on the bench. But yeah, Havertz and Partey was an interesting one, and I did try and assuage it because I mean, we were in the cafe on Holloway Road, and my friend Pete was saying very, very quickly, sort of picked up and said, I actually don't mind it because Forest, for all their, you know, brilliant results and brilliant performance in this first part of the season, do it in a very sort of clear stylistic way that they try and soak up pressure and hit on the counter. So we were fully expecting that. So to play those kind of players. So Jorginho at the base of midfield, but in the base of a midfield that was going to most likely have a lot of possession, and would be good on the ball, pick his passes, intercept, just see the whole game kind of in front of him. And then add into the front line there Trossard, who we weren't sure was going to be fit. But again, another kind of tricky player, would allow the fullback to come outside. He can drift in, all that interplay amongst the front three was there. And Gabby Jesus, we've been on at him for his form. We talked about the fact that his last Premier League goal was against Forest in January and all those sorts of things. But, a bit like with Martinelli, no one denies that when he's on the pitch, he's given it his all. It's just his consistency in delivering goals, assists, those kind of things that we question. And ultimately, that's kind of how it panned out, because the first sort of quarter of the game, as it were, we just pinned them in, and we were... The thing that struck me, you said about Odegaard kind of being so important to our style of play, and that's absolutely right, because what I found so refreshing about our performance, you can look at possession and shots and all those sorts of things, but ultimately it was about energy in the team. Without Odegaard, there was a different setup, there was a different feel to the team in trying to look to do things in vaguely slightly predictable ways and through certain sort of channels, and there was a lot of that arc of frustration around the penalty box and whatnot. But Odegaard gives you that 5-10 yards further forward, high press, high intensity, and then when the ball is overturned, if it is overturned, we're so much closer to goal to launch an attack, and it was pretty relentless and just so refreshing to see.
You mentioned like Trossard and Jesus coming in, and I thought both of them actually in the first half particularly gelled really well and played really well, and particularly the left side, which we've sort of always pointed out as being the kind of weaker, the less kind of run in, bedded in, if you like. But I thought Merino was pretty good in that left side and as a supply line, winning the ball and releasing Trossard quite quickly. And Jesus was taking up good positions. They were switching as well together at the front, I noticed, in the first half again in particular. And I think what you just said as well, the intensity was there, wasn't it? The eye test as us as fans. Yeah. And we respond to that, emotionally. We're there with them. And when they up the game within, that intensity, Jesus was on the press with Odegaard aggressively and it's that virtuous circle, that build of intensity. I think it only really dropped when we were 2 up, and there were a few Odegaard hand whirls to get everyone going again. And Jorginho, just to touch on that as well, I was initially, he hasn't played for ages. Is it right to bring him in from the start? But I think, as you said, if you expect to have a lot of possession and he's got the game in front of him, then he's a great player to have up your sleeve. The only time he got caught, which led to that kind of, I thought was a fairly harsh booking. And I think Mikel probably he's so petrified of getting a player sent off now, isn't he? He brought Party on for the second half. He's not taking any chances. No.
It's interesting you bring up the yellow card because, in talking about what we'd chat about on here, you said about, looking at some stats, but there was one I was just talking to the people around me about at half-time just so much. In the first half, Arsenal made 4 fouls and got 3 yellow cards. And it was absurd. Interestingly, compared to what you said, I think the Jorginho one felt harsh because of the time in the game, possibly. But actually, as an individual foul, he's deliberately stopped the player going through. That's probably the most justified of the 3 yellow cards. Saka's high boot, inverted commas, was a genuine attempt to play the ball. I don't think it was particularly dangerous and reckless. It's one of those ones, and I hate the phrase letter of the law, maybe, that he gets away with it. And the one that really miffed me was the Jesus one. Jesus is kind of, I haven't watched it back, but to me, he's kind of received it on the half turn So he's done that thing of like controlled it as he's opening his body, and then the Nottingham Forest player has come to tackle, but on his blind side. So as Jesus has put his foot out to, either knock it forward or make a pass or whatever, he's made contact there with the Forest player. There is absolutely zero intent. It's not even a tackle from Jesus. It's just in Formula One they'd call it a racing incident. And there's just nothing in it, and he's booked him. I couldn't believe that yellow card, which is annoying because I'd literally said to a couple of people nearby that I felt, because there were a couple of moments when the crowd were a bit, can't believe it, but they were kind of 50-50 moments, and the ref was trying to let the game go, and I said, actually, I don't mind that. If it's there to be contested, just get on with it, just contest it. I thought the ref was doing okay, but then came out very quick with the cards, and it wasn't that kind of game. The Jorginho one, it was kind of a deliberate thing. It was petulant, so I could see that one, but it just didn't require it. And so why he got involved, I don't know. Yeah. And then, I don't know if you'd penciled in talking about the VAR delays.
I'd penciled something else to do with the ref, but not the VAR delays. But that was hugely frustrating, that VAR delay at the beginning. But the only thing I was going to pick up on was that there were a couple of incidences where they Forest players picked the ball up or moved it away to delay restarts.
Yes.
Which, we've covered this a million times, and many pods have, but it just highlights the ridiculousness of the law itself again.
Because like I say, we don't care. And that he doesn't get a yellow card, but it smacks because we've got him before. That's all, isn't it?
Yeah. So if we're going to do this letter of the law thing, so that stuck in the craw bit. So what was the other thing with the VAR delay?
Well, why was it 3 minutes? It was literally 3 minutes, and I'm just there. What a waste of time! And then the guy sort of in front of me to my left, who that brilliant thing in football where he's been sat there for years. I've been sat there for years. I've got no idea what his name is. But anyway, he sort of said, because we're all sort of moaning about the delay, and he says, and what they'll do in a few minutes, they'll put up a little justification like paragraph on the screen. And they did. But not only with that, the little comment was 7 minutes later, and it was on the screen for about 1 second. So you didn't even have time to read it. Like the whole process of how they're coming to these decisions, how they're then trying to justify these decisions. It smacks of, the lord of the land saying, shut up and enjoy your meal, peasant. It's so entitled. And I
wonder to what extent the jumbo screens, whatever they call them, jumbotron screens are editorially governed by, is it entirely Arsenal? Is there a guy there that's, an Arsenal guy that's dictating what goes on that screen?
It can't be dictating what goes on the screen for how long and when.
Okay.
Maybe I have no idea, but that basically that communication surely has to come from the PGMOL.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Is it if it's the PGMOL or whatever, the VAR van sat in a Stockley Park in the car park, as it is in my mind, refs with the full kit on, and that every time there's a decision, then they kind of flick a switch and it sort of beams out across, regardless of what's on the Arsenal edit screen, if you like, the VAR thing comes up and it's their choice as to how long it stays there. It's their choice as to what message comes up and when. So maybe they're putting little flash frames out as well during the game that we're not consciously aware of. There's like subconscious messaging going out from the PGMOL.
That's very Clockwork Orange.
Referees are great, for 0.1 of a second. And we're all there just going kind of bamboozled and like, did you just see something? No, can't have been.
I would buy into that, except it's not working because we're not all walking around going, referees are great. we're all going, they're rubbish. We hate them. It's having the total opposite effect.
It's not working. Yeah.
No.
Well, look, let's go back to the game a bit then. And we're 1-0 up at half time. We obviously I felt anyway, that we should have been more ahead at considering the chances we created. But 1-0, we'll take it. And then Partey comes on, who I thought he looked more. I thought Jorginho did fine, but I just prefer Partey there.
Yeah, he's in form, isn't he? That's the thing. Yeah,
as a
major difference.
Yeah, and the goal, perfectly timed, really, to kind of take the kind of nerves out of the game. Was similar to the kind of pass into the net that I think did he do the same against Spurs, but it was kind of top corner. He bent it into the top corner, so it was going away from goal and then back in. And this one was kind of going on. It was on target, but it bent away from the keeper as it was going in. So beautiful finish. It's like I said, he passed it in.
Us in the North Bank, we had a brilliant view of that, and it was one of those great shots where, you know, it wasn't the sort of, from my exact seat, it wasn't the aesthetic of the curl or anything like that, but there was just that sense of, soon as it left his foot, you knew it was in. Like, there was no doubt. There was no sort of waiting to see the net ripple. It was just crisp. Oh, it was very good. And like you say, timed to perfection, really, because at one, I mean, Forest were always going to carry some kind of threat, but and we should have had one or two more, but that seemed to make us more relaxed. And like you say, then there's maybe that little bit of a lull in the game because, you know, we're just sort of keeping them at arm's length. But, you know, substitutions were made again who made a contribution to the scoreline and just kept us, I don't know, that we kept building that energy up with the players that even then came in, and it was really, really comfortable in the end.
Yeah. Well, we had Zinni come on for Calafiori, which was, I suppose, like for like-ish in terms of they both invert, they're both ball carriers, 67 minutes, and that was fairly seamless. And then it was on 82 that Ethan and Sterling came on for Ødegaard and Saka, understandably. I think both of them could do with the rest. Just that explosiveness of Ethan when he picked up the ball in that sort of final third. And well, we've all seen it. So what was it like from your view? It must have been right down your throat, that shot.
The one that just went outside the post.
Yeah.
It was probably a little bit further away than, you know, my memory sort of makes it.
Well, let's romanticise it a bit.
But it was more than that. It was the close control, the low centre of gravity, the skipping through players.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I'm really liking and trying not to get too overexcited about is that it's his ease with which he comes on and looks a part of the team and demands the ball. You know, there's no hiding. There's no sense of, I'm 17 years old. I'm not even old enough to go to the pub yet. But here I am in front of 60,000 people and I'm just going to throw myself into it. Like, his attitude just speaks of someone who, like, really backs themselves. And that's a really empty sort of thing to say. But, like, just the way because, you know, we've all seen young players that come on. That whole thing about, you know, Walcott, when he was sort of, you know, taken to the tournament by Sven with England, you know, he looked like a nervous schoolboy when he did that. And when he made his first few appearances for Arsenal, Ranieri's got none of that. He's like, he's on and he's like, give me the ball. I want to make something happen.
Oh,
and
gotcha.
It's just, you can't help but get kind of swept up by it. And so with that goal, becomes our second youngest ever Premier League goal scorer, with the great company of Fabregas. And albeit the way things went with Fabregas going to Barca and then back to Chelsea, like, for me and the age that I am, that early sort of Emirates period, like, Fabregas was just my main man, basically. Like, I absolutely loved him and the way he played and the way he conducted himself. And although he might do a slightly different role to Ranieri, but just really hope he develops well.
Well, he's got all the right stuff. Yeah, no, you're right. He's got all the right stuff. And like you mentioned about possibly players that haven't had that. And I look at ESR and, you know, he's got that kind of slight imposter syndrome thing going on maybe when he was at Arsenal.
He's incredibly shy, apparently, away from the pitch.
Yeah,
so
which I get. I just don't get that from Ethan Ranieri at all. I just think he's there to make the most of every opportunity he's got. And when we've talked about this, why hasn't he played more? And interestingly, afterwards, the presser with Mikel saying we've had to develop him and be patient. Have you got that there, the brick by brick?
So I've got it. I mean, James Benge, the journalist, sort of tweeted out some of the comments. The longer transcript is a much more tortured metaphor. So James Benge has done very well.
Let's have it.
He says, I am responsible to build a career for him. Today is another brick. Then we have to add another layer of cement. If you do 5 bricks, it won't work.
I am the hod carrier.
Yes, Exactly, which I sort of get. I mean, there was a whole thing in the long transcript which I did read where he's going, and then the cement is wet, and then you have to wait for it to set. And I'm just thinking, bloody hell, Mikel, like, has he been working on this at home?
And then the pointing. Don't forget the pointing. What style of pointing do you want?
And we had to work with the architect to draw up the plans, and now we consult with the builder. And, but
murdering.
We get it, Mikel. Yeah. But I think we can keep seeing more of him. 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. We'll just keep him ticking along, and he's got this brilliant. Like, there's everyone talking about the stats that he's scored more than Foden in the league this year now. I mean, his minutes to goal ratio for Arsenal is ridiculous. It's like, I can't even remember what it was, but I saw it online. It's like, 40 minutes or something because of
4 goals.
Yeah, exactly.
Cumulatively, yeah.
He's played in every game and scored in every game, and he's doing it for England under 21s, and it's going very, very well. And, long may it continue, because he looks very exciting. Yeah.
And interesting, another thing in the presser that came out was him just referencing the fact that he only had 12 or so fully fit first team players to train with. And then when he got players back from injury like Ødegaard, the intensity in training went up, and therefore that reflects in the performances on the pitch, which it seems obvious once you've said it, but if you're bringing in under 21s to play with the first team, you're never going to get that intensity of training, which then you want to, relay onto the pitch. Okay, let's wrap the Forest game. Other results kind of went our way on the day, and I suppose Liverpool were 2-0, 2-1 down today, and they clawed it back to win 3-2, which was the only negative result really in terms of the top three.
But having watched those games today, they were playing Southampton, so everyone fully expected Liverpool to win, and they did, albeit from behind. But Southampton are just the most frustrating team. All 3 of Liverpool's goals could be avoided because Southampton's passing out from the back led to them putting themselves under pressure for the first goal, because they just did it without any conviction. The second goal is an absolute complete misread of the flight of the ball from the keeper, which Salah very well sort of capitalised on.
Ramsdale.
Not Ramsdale. Ramsdale's got an injury that's going to see him out till they reckon just after Christmas. So they were playing Alex McCarthy, and he just had a bit of a stinker today, to be honest. And then the third goal is a handball, like bizarre one, where ball's gone through and it's skidded off the surface and hit the guy's kind of upper arm, which actually probably wouldn't have been given. But then he's done a little arm flick in, like almost automatically, and it's like, well, you've just given them a goal. So all 3 goals were gimmies. It wasn't like Liverpool really. I mean, Liverpool were on top, and no one's sort of.
But they don't need any extra help.
But they don't need any extra help. But hopefully teams look at that now and go, right, well, that's Southampton, who were pretty much having a shocker of a season, and Liverpool didn't wow us. Liverpool, in upcoming games, Newcastle, Chelsea,
City
to come as well. Although actually, so Liverpool are going to face tougher tests, and they weren't 100% convincing. Even today, yesterday's. Obviously, City lost 4-0 to Spurs, and it was funny, driving back on the supporters coach to Norfolk, there was a real schism in the bus.
I was conflicted as well, I have to say.
As the goals were raining in, and some people were going, yay, there were a few other people going, now, what do you want? So we all agreed that whatever was happening, we were celebrating City losing, and that was it. Nothing else would be said.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's... Like Holly's said before, for now, we are going to judge ourselves against City because we've had to for the last however many years. So point behind them, and they're in terrible form. The vibes are off, you would say. And obviously they're missing their most important player in Rodri. I love the fact that he came out and did the whole Ballon d'Or waving about, and then they lose 4-0. And then he's looking at that Ballon d'Or going, yep. Yeah, this is why, guys.
It was camera cutting to him all the time, wasn't it? During the game. Yeah.
It's hard not to revel in it a little bit, obviously. But yeah, and then the few people putting out stats saying, even in their most kind of like banter era, of which, we've had many, but Man United never lost 5 on the bounce, even at their worst. So something is definitely up. And, sort of long may it continue, except I wouldn't mind them taking some points off Liverpool as well.
Well, quite.
That's going to be another one, isn't it? So
I mean, I don't want to make it too much about City, but it is an interesting thing that you lose one player like Rodri, and as we did with Ødegaard, but with a team like City, you'd feel like that wouldn't cause such a meltdown. That
it's weird,
you think, is there something else at play? I mean, whether it's an internal kind of, the soft factors thing, or you look at the team and you think, well, are some of them now getting a bit past their peak?
Yes.
You look at Walker, Stones even, De Bruyne, and are the new ones, are the young ones gelling as well as they could be, Lewis and the like? So it is interesting. Obviously, I don't want to obsess over it, but, long may the decay continue. And we'll take a little break and look at the Champions League in a sec. Okay, second half, welcome back. We're going to take a look ahead to Tuesday, our trip to sunny Lisbon, who the only stat I've got, which worried me slightly, is that they've won 11 out of 11 of their league games already this season. And they are, I think, second in the table of 400 teams in the Champions League mega division. What else have you got, Stef?
Nothing too specific, apart from just sort of the context of where they're at the moment, because they are having another good season, having previously won the league in Portugal and doing very well in the Champions League. But their highly touted and lauded manager, Amorim, has obviously now made his bow with United today in a 1-1 draw away at Ipswich. And so how they deal with his departure will be interesting. It obviously be his team. He's bound to do that classic thing of raiding them for a couple of players in January, I fully expect. So maybe the bigger difference will be a bit further down the line. And ultimately, from a team point of view, Gyökeres is the one that's getting all the headlines. He's literally I was going to say literally on fire, and I'm going to hate myself for saying that, but he is.
English teacher.
I know, yeah, he is on fire. Just, knocking the goals in and doing it in a way that, seems to be kind of in vogue again with that classic kind of number 9. He's able to run in behind. He's able to outmuscle and outfight defenders as well. So he's just doing the business. So keeping him quiet is going to be quite the task. As I thought it would be against Forest with Chris Wood, because he's been in great form for Forest. But again, contextually, Chris Wood, I didn't realise had only flown back from
New Zealand,
not even like 48 hours before. So they just took the decision not to play him. But Gyökeres scored. I think I scored a hat-trick, maybe even... did he score 4 goals for Sweden in the international break in one of the games?
I don't know who scored. I just looked at their last result was 6-0 on Friday evening.
Right, okay, so...
and I didn't check all the scorers, but he was certainly on the list. But you're right, he's obviously the main threat.
And that's an interesting thing from European League point of view, because it's only really the Premier League, as far as I know, that won't shift a team's match because of their European fixtures. So Sporting will have only played on Friday night because Sporting are playing in the Champions League on Tuesday. That's the only reason. I know Bundesliga do it. I'm pretty sure the French League have certainly done it, and Italians as well. But the Premier League, it's all about just when it goes in that slot on TV. So that can be a little bit frustrating, especially as we've got to travel over there as well. But, it is what it is. And I do wonder if some of our team selection against Forest had the Champions League in mind. So I think especially Havertz and Partey not starting was probably with that in mind. Havertz would have had a pretty heavy load for Germany in the international break, and Partey's the sort of slightly more all-action, dynamic midfielder that I think will be quite important against Sporting. So they should be fine to play against them, and we'll just have to go there and treat them with the respect that they deserve, and hopefully we can get a result.
Well, on that, do you have in mind, and this can be back of a fag packet, what you think the team will shape up like? We won't do an official kind of prediction because Holly's not here as well and he hasn't given us a clue. But do you see, so if you see Partey coming in, as I do, centre mid, do you think it will be Ødegaard and Merino either side of him in a 4-3-3?
Yeah. Partey, Ødegaard, Merino would be pretty settled. I think if Rice is having issues with that injury, then it's probably not worth the risk, because the games are pretty intense now up until the New Year period with midweek games. We've got the League Cup quarter-final against Palace as well. So there literally are no midweeks off. So actually, don't rush Rice. Partey and Jorginho can... cover for now. Merino's, like you said, is doing pretty well. The defence does kind of pick itself, I think, and will be the same as what started, which was why it was good we could make some of those early substitutions. Like you say, Zinchenko came on and was on the ball pretty well, and so him getting those minutes can also be a nice addition. Front line is slightly different, because I think it will be Saka and Havertz. Left side, got a choice now, and it will probably depend what goes on tactically. If we go there and we try and play in that classic away team style, where we look to sit and maybe hit on the counter, then Havertz, his height and his good aerial strength will mean we've got an outlet, but it probably will revert back to Martinelli's pace, I think. That would be absolutely fine. We've got West Ham next week, and if Trossard and Jesus were to come back in for those games, then that's great. We can almost have like two different kind of setups going on, which could work. So I think he'll go with Martinelli, Havertz and Saka up front.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree. And yeah, West Ham 5:30, I think, on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it gives us a few days, as it's a Tuesday game, to get them ready for that. Yeah. Shall I press you for a score prediction?
It's hard for me not to be my usual kind of, real. I'm going to stop saying pessimistic. I am realistic. That's what I'm going to start referring to myself as. And look, if you said it was going to be a draw now, I'd probably go, yeah, fair enough. Okay, we'll take that. They are second, so although they're in form, a draw they would probably see as a pretty good result as well. I just worry because they're in such good form and they're so buoyant and their fans will be so up for it. It's going to be so tough. But actually, we probably do need a win.
Is the bar as high in the Portuguese league? This is kind of devil's advocate here. In terms of their level and what they're playing against week in, week out, they're not up against the same kind of level of intensity and quality as we are. Yeah. So that kind of plays into it as well, is all I would say. And I don't know what their Champions League fixtures have been either before this, in terms of we've had a pretty tough run.
Well, you've got to say, Inter Milan were probably our hardest team on paper, and now Sporting are the team we're playing who have been the highest ranked. So there will be, you would hope, fixtures to come where we can try and get points. Although saying that, Monaco at home is going to be tricky because they're doing pretty well in their league and a third in the Champions League table. Look, I'm going to say 1-1 just because I'm conservative. I don't really know.
I think that's fairly optimistic, actually.
Do you think? Oh, okay, fine.
I do. I think it's realistic, but it's also, I think we'd all be happy with a draw.
Yeah.
Personally. And I would, yeah. So I actually had us going down to a narrow 1-0.
Okay.
So let's see how that one plays out. Holly will be furious.
Oh, he'll be saying it'll be we'll probably say 4-1 again. Let's go with that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, we'll reconvene after that and have a look ahead to the West Ham game.
Yeah.
Until then, thank you, Stef. Catch you soon.
See ya.
The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at NorthBankPod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by the Podcast Company.
Yeah, I got a bit of that. I had my jabs today.
Oh, for what?
COVID and flu.
Is that because you're on the vulnerable list?
Very much so. And especially after being bloody hospitalised.
Yeah.
It was the first year where I thought, I don't know if I'll bother this winter. I'm bothering.
Yeah, bother. I think it's worth bothering. Just have to endure a little prick.
Hey, Laura does every day. Hey.
I was going to say Holly, but